Hey everybody, it's me, Andy from Commander's Brew. You know, I got my boy Karth here as well. He's going to be pretty silent back here most of the time I do this. But this is the Lost Cards. We're talking about Vadrik, Astral Archmage. We took it in a weird, cool direction with some Izzet zombie tribal. But we're going to talk about all the other ways we can build this brand new Izzet Spellslinger. So check it out. Okay, here we go. Lost cards for Vadrik, not Vadrock. Vadrik Astral Archmage. This week's brew was a very fun one. We took this Izzet style spell slinging, reduce all your instants and sorceries costs down, and we made a zombie tribal deck with it. And it works, and it's fun. And go check it out. It's on our page here on our YouTube channel. A lot of fun that we had, but we're gonna look at some of the other ways we could have taken this commander. And I mean, as you can imagine, there's quite a few. So let's read Vadrik first, and then we will get to all the lost cards. So Vadrik is a legendary human wizard, 1 blue-red for a 1/2. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as Vadrik enters the battlefield. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is Vadrik's power. And whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, put a +1/+1 counter on Vadrik. So there's a ton of stuff here. In fact, I'm even thinking of stuff right now before we even go. So I'm gonna read this first one. Sean, I want you to take the second one.
Sure.
First up, I mean, it's just pretty straightforward stuff here. Just true Izzet spell slinging. Obviously, we can do that. We can reduce the costs of all of our big, huge spells, not unlike a Mizzix of the Magnus deck, and that is definitely a card I think you would see even in this deck. I think normally you would probably run Mizzix as your commander and maybe have Vadrik as a 99, but if you were running Vadrik, Mizzix is certainly a good card to run as well. Just keeping the costs of instants and sorceries really low. If you did include both of these cards, I think you would even want to make sure you're running expensive instants and sorceries, because they're gonna together these two are gonna make the colorless cost of your instants and sorceries like next to nothing. So they work really well together, especially when it comes to the cantripping type stuff, where that really helps Mizzix and Vadrik. If you have it as your commander, that's going to help. That's going to start you on your thing of making things really cheap as you're casting them really good. Obviously, when we get to casting tons of instants and sorceries, Aetherflux Reservoir, stuff like Sphinx Bone Wand, all that type of stuff comes into play, and we start thinking about casting, a bunch of them and getting big payoffs for that. And this is a type of deck we've seen a ton of times. You can even get into the Strixhaven thing about doubling up spells and copying them, and then we're starting to care more about that, and we're getting big counts of of the copying. What's it called? What's the ability called that cares about
Magecraft?
Thank you, Magecraft. You start getting some Magecraft triggers and things like that, and you can get really wild.
I like that we've got obviously the comparison to Mizzix makes sense because they're both cost reducing instant and sorcery Izzet commanders. But what I like about Vadrik is that it's all based on power. So we get to run those instants and sorceries that pump power as well. And then that just kind of starts everything off. Mizzix, your opponents always, everyone knows kill Mizzix right away, but I don't think people know kill Vadrik right away yet. They will. So you make this deck now before everyone figures out that cost reducing is too good.
I love that Vadrik starting off is just Goblin Electromancer, and
it's true.
And having it costs 3 instead of 2, but just the fact that you can have Goblin Electromancer in your command
That's
zone
true.
is very strong, right? That is a very good card just on its own. So the fact that you just get that, plus it's even better, because he comes in as a 2/2, right? Because he it becomes day as he enters the battlefield. Okay, so will he see that then?
No,
No.
the wording is when day becomes night or when night becomes day. It's neither day nor night until it becomes day, which is
you're
weird to
right.
think
Yes,
about.
you're right. Okay, of course. Yes. So that is how I was thinking of it, actually. I was thinking of it as only one guaranteed. But, do anything to pump this guy's power, things get wild.
Things get wild. Cheap equipment, you probably don't want to run equipment, but there is no shortage of single mana spells that add +3/+0. No shortage of them.
That's a whole deck, right? Let's just jump down to that then, because
sorry,
that's okay, that's fine. But yeah, let's jump right down there. You can just do Voltron with Vadrik.
Oh yeah, you've highlighted Colossus Hammer here. It's a hefty equip, but you're gonna pay 8, but you're gonna get 10 discount on all your spells. So single blue, draw 10 cards. I guess it'd be blue. Single red, do 10 to you.
It just gets wild, right? And you can do a bunch of different styles of Voltron with him that make a lot of sense. Obviously we're keeping it in with the instants and sorceries just because that's where your big payoff is. But Colossus Hammer, lets you cast X spells for a ton. Then you do stuff like Reckless Charge, which we did have in this deck, the original deck. But Reckless Charge is just too good to ignore. You have to put this in Vadrik. It's incredible. Because
I think
you Reckless Charge it for single red, then you flash it back for another single red right away, and you, like Sean, you said in the original show, that's +6 +6
7
plus 6
7
plus
power.
O, plus the original 1 power. You're getting 7 discounted just from Reckless Charge. You only paid 2 for it.
Well, can I throw you this? We're merging all the lost cards. I'm sorry can I tempt you with a Haze of Rage? Haze of Rage is that storm sorcery with buyback 2.
Right.
So buyback cost is also discounted by Vadrik's ability. So if you have a power 3 or greater, Haze of Rage costs a single red to buy back, and all your creatures get +1/+woe, including Vadrik. So, and then a single red.
Plus woe is a good way to say it.
+1/+woe. Whoa. Because it's got storm. So so you can easily get Vadrik up to +9, +12, just with a few red.
I was gonna say, you don't even need to cast that many things, because for every Haze of Rage you cast, it gets copied with its previous storm, right?
Yeah.
It storms itself.
The first Haze of Rage gives you +1, but the second Haze of Rage will give you +2 because it storms itself. The third Haze of Rage gives you +3, and each one costs a single red, because by this point Vadrik's power is through the roof. We might as well just give him trample and do 21 commander damage.
That's it, right? Voltron. It's that was one of the things we considered building. I think when I think of Izzet Voltron, I always think of Shu Yun, which is
of course.
I think that's Jeskai.
It's right? Jeskai technically,
but you do lean on a lot of the Izzet side of it, obviously. There's also stuff you can use. There's some interesting auras to put on Vadrik. One that I thought of that doesn't up his power or anything, but it's Curator's Ward, which gives hexproof, and when enchanted permanent leaves the battlefield, if it was historic, you draw 2 cards. So protection, there's even extra protection if it does even still die. And then of course all the other auras that would pump the power. There's a ton of great red ones that just pump power too, which is fine, right? So there's you can just do so much with it. And then you mentioned it, but Storm, right? I mean, it's just so easy to do when you're discounting all the cards to that they only cost 1 or whatever, right?
That's where Izzet Storm decks get really tricky managing your red versus blue, because especially in this deck, everything's going to cost 1 red or 1 blue. But if you don't have a lot of duels, then you're just ooh, I only got 4 actual red, so I'm gonna have to
you need to start
figure
looking,
out a way.
I mean, obviously, but you need to start looking at the rituals, right? And Vadrik makes the rituals incredibly good. Because once you start discounting the cost of those, you're starting to pay 1 red and you get 5 mana in your mana pool or whatever, right?
Oh my goodness.
This
is the best ugly Storm commander we've ever had? Because we can get Mizzix takes a while to get there, because with Mizzix you kind of have to cast a 1 to get to 2,
Yeah.
and then you want to get a cheap card, so you kind of have to have a 3 to be able to afford it right away to get to 4. But with Vadrik, you're just like single red. Now everything's 4 cheaper. It's like, let's go.
Yeah,
like you're already there.
Yeah, exactly. Like one reckless charge, and you can just that's it.
That's it. You're there.
You go. Now you go, right? Like obviously you need to get to the point where you have that mana, but like even just yeah. Just that, and then starting to see some of those rituals and things like that. Like it might give Mizzix a run for her money there. I don't know.
I'm gonna look up the storm cards that have a single pip.
You look those up, and I'll just mention very quickly also, like if you wanted to look at some of the day versus night stuff, that's something to look at. Like we said, it's kind of like we said in the main episode, but like it's basically the old werewolf mechanic, except that it's for each person's turn. No longer does you casting a spell and someone else casting a spell in your turn count as the two to change it to, I guess, back to day, I guess is what you would call that. From what I've been told, it's just on the person's turn now. It's just all you. So you have a little bit more authority over it, and it does make it, I think it makes it better for Commander, because if I remember correctly, the old werewolves, there was this one werewolf where on the other side of it, it tapped for like two green mana or something like that. Like it was like a dork, and then it tapped for 2 if it flipped.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Never stayed flipped because people are casting 2 spells on their turn, and they would do it to like they would cast 2 spells on their turn specifically to flip your thing back to make it worse, right? So this way they can't really they have to work a little harder to do that at least. So I think it's a little bit better. So you could focus on that. You could focus on the +1/+1 counters as well if we're talking about, Voltroning up and doing that sort of thing. Blue and red have some decent support for that type of thing, although that's obviously more of like a white and green, especially in Innistrad. But you can find it. It's out there. But there's a lot. There's a lot to do here, and I think we're stumbling on the fact that the most powerful thing you could probably do is like just fully go to town and solitaire storm off with rituals and getting there with any of the big storm cards. Although the one thing I will say is that like you're missing, well, I guess not really. I was going to say you're missing the black storm card that I love, but I think that only that only targets a player. You can't do that to everyone. So maybe an Anger in the Graveyard and an Empty the Warrens is what you want.
I mean, there's some other options. I looked for storm cards that have a high colorless cost, but a single pip. We don't have to be this picky, but so if we haven't spent all of our red getting our storm count high, I love Ignite Memories. It's 4 and a red sorcery.
Oh, no.
Yeah, target player reveals a card at random.
That's a good card.
And Ignite Memories deals damage equal to that player, equal to the card's converted mana cost. Sometimes is like, oh, I know you've got expensive green cards in there. I might hit a land once in a while, but on average, I'm gonna do 20. Maybe I'll do 40, dude, if you've got a lot of hits. But if you've got a lot of blue, if you've got some blue, and you're like, I'm gonna use all my red to get my storm count high, I would opt for a Temporal Fissure. 4 and a blue sorcery, return target permanent. Lands are allowed to its owner's hand storm. You could very reasonably, maybe with a Haze of Rage, just like storm, and then just truly put a player back to the Stone Age, like as if they just started. They have nothing on the field anymore, but you do.
If the Storm player did this just to you and they just gave you everything back, because that's all they could do, let's say, like they Temporal Fissured and they could only do it to one person really to make it, what would you just quit? Like,
I mean, okay,
like
so this is a deeper discussion, right?
It's true. It is. Part of me would just be, I guess it depends on where it is in the game. Like if the game had been going long enough and like, okay, you've got your, like you did it. We've been playing for an hour and a half. Okay. You Temporal Fissured. Yeah. Okay. You know what? You got all my stuff back. I'd be like, okay, I'm willing to say you beat me.
Yeah.
Like you have
Yeah. I'm willing to say
specifically,
that.
I'll scoop to that. But obviously, if it happens super early, you can stay in the game and try to affect the game still.
Well, because Vadrik can do it super early, where you're just like,
Exactly.
I mean, it's turn 6. Like, I lost a ton. You're probably gonna have to discard at the end of your next turn because you're gonna play a land and a rock, maybe a Sol Ring if you're super lucky. You're gonna discard most of it.
Yeah.
It's like. I mean, you have to ask the question: why not overload Cyclonic Rift?
Yeah.
Because this is way more style. So, overloading a Cyclonic Rift, it doesn't get the lands. It's no fun. I may have cast my last Cyclonic Rift already. It's like,
yeah.
and I wasn't aware at the time. I did not know that was the last time I would ever overload a Cyclonic Rift. I'm just not interested in it. It brings no joy to me.
Well, there you have it, though. There's a lot of fun stuff to do with this. Whether you can range from very powerful to extremely silly. I mean, generally I'll come down on the silly side of things there, as you can see probably in the main show that we did this week, the Zombie Tribal. But there's a lot of cool stuff to do. I like the idea of this Voltron commander, not the Shu Yun style one, but the one with like a Colossus hammer on there and like just then getting to cast like really weird instants and sorceries, like and just get a lot of fun stuff going on. I think that sounds interesting. Somehow lean towards equipment on it. That might be cool too, like having maybe a couple things that care about artifacts and stuff like that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, a lot of this is the thing though, right? You get what you think is going to be the same old commander that you've seen a million times, but there's tons of ways you can put different spins on it and try. We thought for a second we were going to do an achievement unlocked with this deck, but I couldn't find an achievement that I was like very interested in the amount of time I had to brew it. So, I think we came up with something cool. And like I said here, there's a lot of different ways to go as well. So, thanks everyone for watching us here on Lost Cards. I'd love to hear some more different, interesting ways to brew Izzet spell slingers, in general. Let's start putting some interesting takes into these types of retread, well-run archetypes. I'd love to hear it. So get at us in the comments. Check out the main episode. It was a lot of fun as well. And otherwise, we'll see you next week. Brand new deck text, brand new Lost Cards, set reviews coming up. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too, and for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.